Hello and welcome to the November 10th meeting of the Public Works and Finance Committee meeting. We've got a very loud alert to remind us that it's 4 o'clock and 4 items on our agenda. The first thing is approval of Public Works and Finance Committee meeting minutes from October 13th. Any concerns or edits needed?
I didn't see it.
I didn't either, so we are good to approve those as presented. Thank you, Lori, for your hard work. Item 2 is the disbursement report from October 2025 with Sarah Decker. Welcome, Sarah.
Oh, thank you. So looking at the month ending October 31st, 2025, major expenditures totaled $4,965,996.54. Our largest expenditure was payroll, which was $1,945,991. And I actually have 10 major expenditure payments to point out, so bear with me because there's a lot of repetitive words. But the first one, payment towards the 2025 C Street Improvement Project for $142,462.39. A payment towards the 2025 Alleyway West of Main Street Sewer Project for $116,509.12. Payment towards the 2025 Sidewalk Improvement Project for $81,586.95. A payment towards the 2025 Glulam Beam Restoration
At the HERC.
at the HERC for $85,754.60. A payment towards the City Shop project for $103,490.30. We made 5 $10,000 award payments under the Affordable Housing Grant Program for $50,000. We made our first of 2 premium payments for our annual insurance for $260,938.50. IS paid multiple annual software renewals for $90,750.91. We paid our quarterly fees to Whitcomb for the months of October through December for $193,599.86. And we paid our first FY26 DEQ principal and interest payment for our 2020 loan for $134,111.04.
My only question, Sarah, and maybe this is a Mia question, that DEQ grant, or I'm sorry, loan payment, that's not tied to the PBAC thing. This is separate from that, right? Because the PBAC one is through the Idaho Department of Water Resource Board. It's a different acronym, I think. Because this one says Drinking Water Loan 2020. So this is just like the ongoing one that we
Correct.
get
So-
from the state.
This is the loan, we had our DEQ loan that we consolidated and started making payments on 2020. That's this one, and we have another one for 2024.
Ruby, thank you.
I've got one question, mainly just out of curiosity that I probably have heard and know, but I would just like to be reminded of. What exactly are the awards of $10K each to the Hills and Rivers Housing Trust?
That would be an Elisa question.
Yeah,
Yep.
Elisa, if you don't
Come
mind.
on up,
I'm
Elisa
just curious.
Anderson, our
Yeah.
city grants manager. Welcome.
Yeah.
So we actually dispersed those funds on last week, but Hills and Rivers
Right.
through Nils, he had 5 homes that qualified for the grant program. And I think one of them you saw we brought through to council to get the special approval
Right.
on that. So we worked with legal to get all the documentation and the documents together. And so there were 5, and they're all located off of the development on Palouse River Drive.
Yeah. Sweet.
Mhm. So that was an allocation that was in the FY25 budget, and that used up the rest of that allocation.
And that was
So-
the council approved funds for
Yes.
that. Yep.
It did not include any ARPA funds.
Okay. Great.
It was in the plan. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I was just curious, and I'm happy to know more of the source. Appreciate that.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. And so it sounds like we are on board with accepting the disbursements report for the month of October 2025. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Item number 3 is the adoption of the Latah County All Hazards Multi-Jurisdictional Mitigation Plan 2025 with Elisa, and I don't see Chief, so Elisa's flying solo. Welcome, Elisa. Hopefully he's not responding to a surprise call. Ooh.
Can't wait for an acronym on that.
Yeah.
Plenty of acronyms.
CACMJ.
So this was quite a long plan that was attached to your staff report. Not all of it applies to Moscow, but the overarching plan applies to everyone in Latah County. So just to kind of start out, these plans have to be updated every 5 years in order to be eligible for grant funds. And this is not just something we do here. This is required of all 50 states, all local governments. And basically, it's usually led by a county. Not all states are set up just like we are, but it's led by the county, and then also for tribal governments. So in order really to qualify for any of the FEMA grant programs for disaster, you have to be in a mitigation plan. And this is kind of just the process that it goes through. You look at, planning grants, and so the county actually receives a planning grant to do this mitigation plan. And that's how they were able to hire the consultant we'll talk about. And so then you go through the prior plan, you look at your mitigation actions, then you scope your projects, then you look at how are you going to get those funded, and then that all comes to the top to build resilient communities. So this is just a graphic I found that was kind of like, this is how we go. Mitigation program. So Latah County hired Integration Solutions Consulting to update the 21. And just to step back there, that plan was a year late in getting approved. There was some transition with the prior consultant and the Latah County. So we're back on track with that. The plan's also reviewed by the Idaho Office of Emergency Management and FEMA, which have both approved this plan already. City staff from community development, fire, grants, police, public works. And if you looked at the different mitigation measures that I referenced, we did a wide variety of projects this year, which we'll talk about a little more, but I felt like we covered it better than we had in the past. So we come up with then our new plan, which is called the Latah County, Idaho Multi-Jurisdictional All Hazard Mitigation Plan for 2025. And this will allow us to be eligible for those FEMA grants for the next 5 years.
And it's not, I guess the other part of like, it's not just about getting grant accessibility. It's also meant to be in part a playbook for us, right? So it is.
Yeah, in the beginning of the plan, all of the natural disasters are listed from volcanoes to hurricanes to whatever. And not everything's going to apply to every city or county. But you still, you need to address everything. And our main ones are usually fire and water, or, fire and flooding. Yeah. So the purpose and the goal of the hazardous mitigation plan is to identify the hazards across the county and the communities, assess what impacts those hazards it could have on the vulnerable populations and our infrastructure, and then propose solutions to reduce risk to lives and property. And it emphasizes hazardous mitigation, which means, we do things in advance before an emergency. And we also look at that through land use planning and different things. And that's all kind of part of our firm maps for flooding and those types of things. Many strategies are low cost with minimal community impact. And just one that we're looking at right now is trying to clean out some of the areas of Paradise Creek to prevent flooding in advance, as we know that the creek bed has been silted in and it's getting worse and worse. And so, the public works folks are working on a plan to do that and what permits would be required. So that's, preparing in advance. The goal is to increase public awareness and provide clear actions for the officials, the agencies, and the public. The content and approach of the plan is, again, we identify the hazards and develop the risk reduction strategies, set short and long-term goals to meet federal, state, and local requirements, and focus on hazardous mitigation, risk assessment, vulnerability analysis, the mitigation strategies, and then how do we implement that. And the aim is to protect the residents, the economy, the environment by reducing risk during emergencies and disasters. Within your packet, there is a resolution which is required by the City Council to approve in order. The resolution goes to FEMA, and everybody in the county has to do that. in order to be approved to be in the plan for eligibility for grant funding. And I noted that much of the information regarding Moscow was in Chapter 19, and then the specific mitigation measures were on pages 35 through 51. And this is just an example of one that the fire department put in. And each mitigation measure has the same questions up at the top. And so this one's the fire department. It's ranked high, and it's $3,500 per project. And this is to replace damaged and obsolete PPE for the firefighters. And this is actually a Public Works one, a capital improvement project, and this is something that we've been looking at for quite a while. Some of our stormwater infrastructure is undersized, and when it floods, we see, the stormwater bubbling up under the streets. And so, since we have a stormwater utility now, they're looking more specifically at that, and we have some targeted areas that we know we can increase the size of that infrastructure under the streets in order to keep that from happening. And then a lot of the communities a lot of the houses that you see, how is it getting flooded there? It's the overflow underneath, where much of Paradise Creek runs underground. And then we have a lot of our pipes in the older parts of town were put in. They're too small now for what we have going on. And so we can apply for hazardous mitigation we can do an area at a time and apply for a grant somewhere between $250,000 usually for this type of project to go in and upsize that.
Is that what the HMGP stands for? Hazardous mitigation something
program
plan?
grant? Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And we listed some of the areas: Tamarack, Henley, Northeast Water Tower, Drain Line, and various storm mains citywide. I think one of the ones that we saw last was by Triangle Park, and there happened to be the last flood that the storm drain lid was like floating up and down. It looked like it was on top of a waterfall or something. So several of those were in there. I think there was almost 15 pages of different mitigation actions. This is greatly expanded from what we had before because we incorporated all of our stormwater actions. If you notice, the barricade project for the downtown public events is in there, and some things that we hadn't done in the past. That's bringing all the departments together to provide their input. So we worked really hard to get it all in there. So the proposed action is adopt, support, and facilitate implementation of the new Latah County, Idaho multi-jurisdictional all-hazard mitigation plan. But I'm sure you may have a few questions before we move to that.
I don't have a lot of questions,
Okay.
But first, I feel pretty confident saying we all really like the process you went through to get this done. I've spent it seems like a fair amount of time looking at emergency problems throughout different communities that I've lived, and it's really nice to have something like this written that is easy to fall back on. So, so well done to you and all the folks working on this. This might be I know it's a weird question, and FEMA are we still, there's so much talk about FEMA being there or not being there, or being funded and not being funded. I know this is good regardless of any of that, but are we still able to actually get grants like we used to from FEMA, or is it a lot harder?
That's yet to be seen, I would have to say. A lot of times the money comes when there's a disaster declaration. I haven't heard that anyone has not been able to get assistance once they've had a disaster declaration in our area, which is usually flooding. I have not heard from the Idaho Office of Emergency Management that they haven't received their annual allocation that came through. I do know that the programs are delayed probably 3 to 5 months from what we would normally see. So I don't quite know what that completely looks like, but I haven't received any emails that have told me that programs have been canceled.
Well, that's something.
Yeah.
My
only question, Elisa, some of the documents in here, so we've got the land use map from 2019. Is this, if we adopt if the reference documents used in this application, if we adopt more updated versions of them, does it trigger any additional rework for you to then communicate and work with the county to incorporate this to the plan and then get the blessing from FEMA?
Right. So one of the jobs of the consultant, and by the way, I wanted to say, the folks at Latah County did a lot of work on this last time and took it very serious and worked really well with the consultant, and they were a great firm. It took a lot of the work back from what we had to do this last time, but I want to say that the consultants went and looked at any of the agency's updated plans, and they went through, our comprehensive plans and pulled up. They asked us in one of the questionnaires early on, is it going to be updated? Has it been? Ours hasn't been updated since the 2019. I know that in the next few years that's going to happen. If you have a major change in your city, say we had a large annexation or something like that, you can ask to have an amendment made to the plan.
And I figure more is more as far as like making sure that what is used in this is up to date compared to what we're operating on. I just was worried if it's something like having watched the navigating of like a changing address for like an operating permit with with not FEMA, but the EPA or anyone else, like it can trigger a lot of heartburn. So I'm glad that none of the updates that we would make in here are really quick things, and we would be able to catch it and update accordingly. And hopefully it's not too much of a pain to get it updated with FEMA as well.
I was in another meeting last week with regarding our underpass project, and Idaho Department of Water Resources was on there, and we know that FEMA's updating our firm maps.
The
It's,
floodplain and
yeah, and it will impact some of the areas that we hadn't seen in the past. And what does that look like? And I guess they're in that final area of review right now with FEMA. They were able to look that up. But if it, depending upon what that change is, we would then ask to have the new maps included, referenced in this hazardous mitigation plan, so that if we did have flooding in areas that weren't previously referenced,
we can make sure it's
Yes.
incorporated. Okay.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have any questions. I really enjoyed going through this because I think that it's definitely a good example of having plans in place that a lot of people don't actually know about, right? And so I think we get contacted a lot, usually clearly on extreme weather events, so extreme cold or extreme heat, right? And as a municipality, we have certain thresholds that we follow that mirror, what's stated in here throughout the county as well. And so I think that it's just really important for the multifaceted jurisdictions and cities to all kind of have the same metrics that they use to assess what is best for the communities. So, it was a beast to go through, but
We had great
Uh,
participation
yeah.
from all of the smaller cities
Yeah.
too, which we didn't have last time. And then being able to provide that mutual aid within those other communities is important that that's referenced also.
and then the other thing just to highlight, because again, I got nerdy about this, which I did not know, and maybe I'm the only one in the room that didn't know this, but that Latah County is the first and only county created by the United States Congress.
baby.
Yeah.
Us fourth grade.
Yep.
Idaho history
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah,
They gave it to. We're here because
Yeah.
it was the way to appease.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I did not know that.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's my favorite plaque to see in the state house in the basement.
Yeah.
Or the downstairs of the
Yeah,
rotunda.
so that was a treat where I'm just like, all right,
We're special.
Yeah.
We're unicorns.
Great.
I love it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we feeling good about adopting recommending
Yeah,
adoption?
I feel really great about
And
this.
you did say, does the
The resolution.
resolution needs to be adopted by council? Will the presentation come back to us as such,
That
or?
would be up to you.
I mean, how are things looking? I mean, skinny, and we want to keep it skinny, or I think this is really interesting.
I had the inclination that it might be worthwhile for all of us to hear.
I
That was my inclination.
I would
but I can be
agree.
persuaded.
And not just for all 6 of us, but for the community to maybe, although it will be the week before Thanksgiving, so we'll see. But I'd be game to put it on regular agenda if Elisa and or Chief.
That's
want
fine.
to.
And I can put a couple of more slides of some other examples in there too, if you'd like me to do that. So we have a wide range of like types of projects that we.
And I think that it's important to showcase, again, like I said, kind of the
Agency.
yeah, the interagency cooperation,
Agreed.
right? I think that's important to showcase in the sphere that we're in.
So it sounds like the committee is comfortable recommending approval, but put it on regular agenda.
I would like that, Sandra.
Yeah, I don't think we need to,
Yeah.
but
I
I
don't know that
really
we do
don't. And
either,
I
but-
feel that the people that are watching it now, so I don't think we're gonna get any extra people looking at it. But that said, I mean, it's
guess
really a
it's-
whatever. I don't think we need it. I think I don't want to take staff time and staff hours and pay. But that said, it's also, I mean, it's fine.
I was thinking since it comes up once every 5 years, and I don't remember. Oh, I guess I wouldn't have been on council yet. I'd like it to be on regular
let's
agenda.
do it.
So with a recommend to approve. Okay, cool. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you.
And fourth and final item on our agenda is the 2026 Whitcomb Emergency Dispatch Agreement with Chief Dollinger. Welcome, Chief.
Well, I'd say good afternoon, but it looks like evening.
Oh
out
my
there,
gosh,
so
it's
brutal.
I don't know what to say at this
Brutal.
point.
Brutal.
Yeah, I know. So yes, the 2026 agreement looks almost exactly like the 2025 agreement. Just the total annual compensation went up slightly, about $4,000. Other than that, like I said, it was, there were no changes as far as I know.
Because
So,
we had done a significant amount of rework between 24 and 25's contract, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
excellent. Do we happen to know how Whitcomb's
I was wondering
staffing
that too.
journey has been?
Well,
Same, but different?
yeah, same, but different. It sounds like every time I go to an executive board meeting, they're kind of making headway, but unfortunately they're
Attrition.
quite a bit like us as well. It's like you
Yeah.
take 2 steps forward and maybe 1 step back, but it seems like they're potentially getting there.
Okay, cool. Great, yeah,
So obviously it would be our recommendation to
Yes.
approve.
yeah.
Yes.
And I think most of my questions were from the last big batch of revisions a year ago, so,
Yeah, no, I just want to know how the staffing was,
Yeah.
but that really didn't have anything to do with approving the
yeah,
recommendation.
yeah,
sure,
fair
sure.
enough.
Curious.
Mhm.
Well,
So-
we want to know the health of our community partner, how they're doing. So, groovy. Any questions? Okay, cool. Thanks to Whitcomb.
Let's
And
do it.
sounds like we recommend approval, and I'd be okay with this one going on
Great.
consent
Agreed.
since it is largely unchanged.
Wonderful.
Okay, groovy. Thanks,
Easy.
Chief.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Anything from Mia? No. Okay, groovy. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.